a government-appointed scientific committee has now said that the COVID-19 pandemic in India has crossed its peak, but protective measures must continue. The total number of infections by the time the pandemic is controlled in February 2021 will be about 105 lakh or 10 million or so cases. Currently, India's total infections are at about 75. And according to this committee, they've gone on to say that in the absence of a lockdown in March, India's total deaths could have exceeded 25 lakh by August this year. Currently, India's total deaths stand at 1.14 lakh. Now, the committee was appointed to come out with an Indian national supermodel, that is a mathematical model for COVID-19 that can shed light on the likely trajectory of the pandemic in India. Let's go across to Sukirti Dwivedi, who's monitoring this story. It's a big story of the day, Sukirti, and everybody looking to this panel and its findings. But the conclusion really of this panel is that if all protocols are followed, the pandemic can be controlled by early next year, by February.
Well, yes, Sarah, that is the big point that is to be drawn from this study that the committee has come out with. A big suggestion at this point of time to say India, which is currently standing at the world number 2 in terms of total cases, this country is going to bring almost to an end this entire spread of the epidemic by February 2021, when we would have about 105 lakh cases, while India's current cases stand at about 75 lakh. The other major conclusions that have been drawn are about quantifying the lockdown. Now, that has been the big measure of the government that the government says has constantly justified, and now that being quantified in with specific figures, saying that 25 lakh deaths would have been witnessed by India by August this year had the lockdown not been imposed, and that being compared to the current situation where we stand at about 1,14,000 deaths. And even by February 2021, when we would have been at the end of the this pandemic, by then India's total death rate would be at 0.04%. So those are the big figures. But despite that, some big conclusions also in terms of the migrant movement during the lockdown. The government always said that, all the steps that we took during the lockdown with respect to migrants were right. And even now they are saying that their movement during the lockdown to states like UP and Bihar did not lead to a spike in cases. But had these migrants been allowed to move in the pre-lockdown phase, had they been allowed to take trains and buses and move to these different states, then we would have surely seen an adverse impact. So those are the big points, and also this big note of caution that continue your precautions. If you go on celebrating all of these festivals without any precautions in mind, then we would have a spike of about 26 lakh cases by mid-October. So let's not go back to square one. We've reached this phase where we seem to have crossed the peak, and if we keep our guard up, then by February next year we should be over this trouble.